Cheers. Tonight, we're making mead, and we're drinking mead. Maybe more drinking than making. As I was planning this experiment, I had everything you see here on the table ready to go. I was ready to dive right in, start making a bunch of different batches. As you can see, all the different honey on the table. This video was going to be what I'm calling the Great TRASH Mead experiment, or that's what it was going to be called. And TRASH Mead is my abbreviation for a traditional session. The best name ever, by the way, traditional session. So that's going to be forever referred to as a TRASH Mead. So that was the intent. I have 8 different kinds of honey here, 6 different types, but 2 of them are from different sources. So I've got 2 different orange blossoms, got 2 different orange clovers. I was going to dive right in and do 7 or 8 different batches of mead using a single strain of yeast. And they were going to be 1 pound each. I was going to dive in. I was going to do a bunch of these different ones and just see how it all came out, because I wanted to see the different flavor profiles, how they would actually show, the honey would show in the finished product. And I stopped for a second and I realized that we as home brewers sometimes rush into things, and myself included. Maybe it's just me, but I get this idea in my head. I say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to go. And I'm not even going to think about it. And that was a problem that I ran into. When I came home, I started gathering supplies. I was going to get ready to start putting all this together, and I realized that I might not even be chasing the right objective. So the intent was I was going to make 7 or 8 gallons using US-05. And the reality is that might not be the best mead choice, or the best yeast choice for a traditional session mead. Again, a trash mead. So I thought before I would go and do 8 gallons of a traditional session using 1 yeast, I thought I really should try and draw the line for me and figure out what yeast I wanted to use. I think we dive right into something without actually really thinking about what we're going to get out of it before we really do the background work on it. And that kind of comes down to yeast selection for me, at least in this instance. So what was going to be the Great Traditional Session Mead experiment, the Great TRASH Mead experiment, was going to be, all these different honey varietals and see how they all came out in a session form. And again, that was going to be using strictly US-05. US-05 is great. It's neutral. It ferments fast. It's clean. It works well, and people love it. And I love it. I use it all the time. But that might not be the best choice for this, and that's the whole point, is that you're going to dive into something and not even know that's really what you want. And I think as homebrewers, we have this idea that this one thing, I've got this one thing in my mind, it's going to be exactly what I want, and that's not always true. I thought using US-05 is going to be exactly what I want. And that might not have been true. So I want to experiment, I want to test it first before I go and spend all this time, all this money, all this honey on one experiment. So what we're going to do to back up is try and figure out which yeast we really should use. I think I want a little sweeter yeast. That's what I had in my head. That was my my expectation, was that making a traditional session, I wanted it to be a little sweeter, just a little bit, not a ton, just a little bit sweeter. But the reality is once it's carbonated, is that really what I want? And that's the truth, and that's where we're at here. So what we're going to do, instead of just using strictly US-05, we're also going to test out 71B and D47. So instead of doing 8 different varietals of honey, we're only going to do 2 different varietals of honey with each different yeast strain. And I think that really helps get us a much better picture of what the flavor is going to be, and we can kind of get a good idea by using these yeast strains. And I think the best way to really test this is by using honey that everybody can get. And the 2 we're going to use are going to be wildflower, and then we're going to do clover. So I just put this in another container. This is Cox's clover. You can get it on Amazon. And it's good. It tastes good. It's got a great flavor. We'll use that and kind of see how it shapes out. But, wildflower and clover, anybody can get anywhere. And I thought that would be a great way for us to kind of test this out. After, the intent is to get this experiment done, get them all bottled, and actually try them side by side. Put all 6. So we're going to do 2 of each. So each one of these is going to get fermented with 1 of these yeast. So we're going to do 1 gallon of each with each of these honeys. So we'll actually have a good base to kind of compare once we're actually finished, and then break it down and see what flavor that I like the most. And I'll break it down for you too, and maybe you like it a little sweeter. Again, that might be what I really come out with. But after it's carbonated, things are totally different. So, you know, as a still mead, you might want a little bit of sweetness because you don't really have the body, you don't have the flavor profile, you don't have all those things that come with carbonation that I think carbonation really hides in those lower alcohol meads. You know, once it's carbonated, a really dry mead might be really what I want. I don't know. You know, again, this is the experimentation process that I think every mead maker, home brewer needs to go through to really decide if this is what they want. And that's what we're going to do here. I encourage you to do your own experiment or maybe lean on this to try. But if you've tried one of these meads or one of these yeast as a session mead, drop a comment down below, come onto the site, put a comment on the recipe. If you have a traditional session mead recipe that you like, come and drop it on the site. Depending on when you're watching this, we might already have the recipe upload enabled, as in you can come onto the site, onto Homebrew Sorcery, put your own recipes up, and that's the entire point, is we want to create a community where people can put all their own recipes up and actually get a feel, and get a feel for community, and put those things out there. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here, is kind of draw the line and see what really works and what doesn't. So we're going to dive right into it. We're going to do it. So as you can see, what we're doing is going to rehydrate the yeast. Some people don't do it. I mean, you can pitch direct. I just don't see the point. If you're going to go through all the effort of making mead, you should rehydrate your yeast. I mean, get something like Go Firm, which it's not all that expensive. Get some Go Firm. It's cheap. It's worth it. Rehydrate your yeast. I mean, whether you use a nutrient schedule is totally up to you. I don't think you can realistically do this experiment without some form of a nutrient schedule. I'm going to do Fermento and the Tosna recipe, the Tosna schedule, excuse me. So, but rehydrating your yeast is like the easiest thing to do, and you get the most bang for your buck. So don't, in my opinion, don't skip on it. It's worth it. All right, so while we are rehydrating our yeast and trying to get the clover honey melted, which has become a real problem all of a sudden, we're going to get our wildflower honey measured out. And like I said, we're just going to do a pound of each. Okay, you can do a pound of each. This is easy. Get this done. One. Make sure we got these labeled right. Yep. We're gonna do it again. Here we go. This is, if you're a mead maker, you know what this is all about. It's about this time where I realize I hate clover honey, because this shit is solid. Can't pour it, can't do shit with it. Alright, so as we're wrapping up tonight, a few things. I've succeeded in making a gigantic mess, which is the perfect thing to do in my kitchen that I need to use right away. And then we're going to go ahead and pitch the yeast. So, go ahead and take in specific gravities on all these. I had to substitute a little bit of the Glory Bee Clover Honey because I didn't have enough. I thought I did. Oh well, that's what it's got to be. But now we're going to go ahead and pitch the yeast. So I have 3 containers that I have that are enough for 5-gallon batches. So realistically, I'm going to split them in half. Pour them in between the 2 different honeys that we're testing. So the wildflower and the clover. For instance, US-05. I ended up pouring a whole pack along with 71B and D47. And we're just going to go ahead and pitch them, with what will be 2.5 gallon equivalents for the 1-gallon batches. So I want this to be repeatable for somebody who's actually going to be trying it at their own home, on their own homebrew scale, and be able to get ingredients and measurements that are all the same. So anyway, so we're going to go ahead and get these pitched. So we'll start with US-05. Now, as you can see, that yeasty goodness. Go ahead and just stir this one up. We're going to go ahead and just put about half into one of the wildflowers and about half into one of the clovers. I mean, it's not complicated. I went ahead and rehydrated these with Go Firm. And in each container, I've went ahead and put in ferment O, because you need some amount of nutrient for all of this entire solution, for all the meads. So it's got to be something you do. So that does it for this portion of the trash mead experiment. We're gonna go ahead and get these prepped and ready to ferment for, you know, hopefully less than 7 days. That's the intent for a session mead. Get it done fast, quick, and ready to drink quickly. It's cat invasion time. If you're smart, don't ever get a cat, because they make everything in your entire house hard and they're dirty. So we're going to check back in here in a few days. As you can see, yeast is already stirring up in these, and it's going to be good. So I'm really excited to try these. Keep you posted. Thanks for tuning in to Homebrew Sorcery.